Hello, 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 my outstanding friends. Color me Roger the Excited. And why? Because if you've been following me, since they came back from that rendezvous with Asteroid Bennu, brought a sample back, I've been predicting what that sample would be based on my Mudfossil experience. And I will show you what I think it will be, and it appears that it is what I have said from the preliminary stuff I have seen. Very, very sparse. They're supposedly going to release this in March. So here's my predictions. Okay, I mean, it's almost impossible to deny this. And then it's saturated with blood, and blood turns into metals. And this is another meteorite that came through space, and it's smelted coming through. And all these different crystals are different types of metals. When it becomes moltenish, they do what they call flocculation. They come together, and then it crystallizes in this way. And here's the red blood, and here's the black vein blood. Let me show you a closer shot of that. Oh, and there's another one right there. I'll show you that in a second. But here it is right here. You see that red? That's an artery. That's an artery coming in here. I think this was probably a liver, because I don't see any holes in it like a lung. A lung would do this, which is what I just showed you a second ago. And see that little hole right down the center there? See that little cavity right there? They have plumbing that runs all through there. That's how your air goes through and picks up the oxygen. But there's a lot of blood in here. This one here is still saturated, but this didn't come through space. This is an iron meteorite, and there's your vein blood, and there's your artery blood. And this can be tested too. I mean, I'm not making this up. It's not. And this is the Willamette meteorite, and this came through space and burnt off all the weak material. And that's what they say they've never been able to find before, because coming through space in the meteorites, all the cheap stuff burns off. I agree with that. I agree with that. Because I have other lungs here, and I can show you they're totally different. This one's blackened, and all the little fibers are burnt off. But all the rest of the architecture is here for the lung. This one here, the same thing. It's just the same as this. Basically the same thing as that. And right down here, if you can see, there is a little spot of red blood. You see that red blood right there? And there's a hole right there. It's a tube that goes into the lung. And there's tubes running all through that lung. If you look around, you can see it. And all of the weak material has burnt off. Okay, before I get started, I want to make it clear I am not out to assault anybody or be mean to anybody, but I don't think we've been thinking correctly about looking at things. And from my Mudfossil experience, I understand, I believe what I'm looking at, and I fully understand about smelting metals and iron ore and the metals that are literally everywhere, and specifically in the blood. Your blood is just saturated with metals, primarily iron, but a ton of other metals. Now, I actually worked on this car. It was the first stainless steel car ever made. There was only 6 of them made. This is 1936 Ford. And I actually put the floorboards in there. They were red oak. They found this in a barn in Texas being used as a chicken coop. And there was only 6 of them made. Henry Ford apparently sat in all of these. And my father and I rebuilt it, basically. All I did was put the floorboards in. That's all I did. But anyway, he was in this Wallingford steel, and this is strip metals and super metals and stainless. And this was back in the 50s. They were just starting to get all this really fancy metals, and he was part of that. And so I understand metals. And this is an asteroid. It's called Psyche. And it is smelting or had smelted at some point. It's not smelting now. But you have to get something up to a certain temperature, and then all of the weak molecules go away, and you end up with the metals. Now, this is virtually all metals, and they don't have any explanation for it other than it is all, basically, they want to mine it and get the gold out of it and so forth, because they know it's all metal. They don't know why, but they know it's all smelted metals. All right, what they say basically is this must have come from the core of some planet that blew up a long time ago. Well, I do disagree with that, and here's the reason why. This is Bennu. Now, I know clouds look like other clouds and they look like dragons, but guess what? This is all basically metal. Your heart is filled with blood, which is basically all metal. And this has smelted. Now this is Bennu, and you see the architecture here? You see this? And then you see what a heart is made like? It's basically the same thing. And not only does this have craters on it, Bennu, it has tubes sticking out of it just like a heart does. You see that? That's a tube. Snapped off. There's another one over here. There's a tube. Snapped off. These two different color separations are red and black. Well, it's black in mud fossils. This one here they're different colors. Let's just put it that way. Now, this right here is where there was a gooey substance that held the plumbing, the tubes in, and the tubes are ripped out now, along with that gummy stuff. And these are the tendons. And if you look real careful, you can see these little fibers. You see those fibers? Those are tendon fibers. And they locked in. See them right there? That's a pretty good shot of them right there. They lock in to the the muscle, and they hold it in tight, and then the muscle can twist and pump your heart. So these are the anchors, just think of it that way, and these are the valves, and the other ones were the tubes. You see the tube down there? Tube over here. These different colors are the colors of blood. You see the black, I always talk about the black and the red, and then yellow is the mix between the two, and they are all in the hearts. So, can you pick this up as just a coincidence that this looks and is saturated? I'm going to tell you right now, they got some blood out of here from one of these two craters. I can't remember where it was, or I don't really have any idea, to be perfectly honest with you. But I believe they were in one of these two craters. And when they went down, they grabbed it and they took off with that sample. And I say it will be blood. And I have done all the chemistry and shown what it will be in actual quantities. They're saying they can do extreme testing and so forth now. Well, that's good. That's what I want to see. But this is it. This is it. And this right here, remember that I told you was where the tendon is? And if you ever followed mud fossils, you understand white is tendon. This is where it's wrapped in there. And then the muscle wraps right around. It's like a big towel wrapping around it, and then it comes over here and it twists. And that's what pumps your heart. And these are the chambers that basically separate right down. I have hearts here, and I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of them. They preserve very, very well. Blood, very, very good preservative. This is a lung right here. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a lung. And why is it iron? Well, it came through space. It's a little tiny lung. All right, and here's another thing that came through space. And you see, and the reason I can tell you it came through space, you have to heat something up to about close to 3,000 degrees before you turn it into iron from the blood. And here it is right there. And the rest of this was a bone, and it just exploded out when the blood boiled and turned into iron. All right, this is another meteorite that didn't have enough blood in it to turn into iron. But this also was biological. I'm going to explain all this stuff. This is, as far as I can find, there is nothing that's not biological. I know it's a shocker. I know it destroys everything that you've been heard and been told in your life, but it's just the way life is. And that's breaks right off here. And that plumbing goes away primarily. There's a couple of tubes sticking out, as I showed you on those, on the asteroids. Now, let's go see what they have to say about this. And, you know, what I'm hoping for is we get an audience to say, let's see what that chemistry is. It's going to be supposedly released next month. If it fits the profile that I'm talking about, well, you know, and obviously, that's what is in here. They're both filled with blood. And blood turns into metals. Let me show you an iron meteorite. And I'll show you where it has a vein and artery right inside the iron after they cut it open. All right, the whole idea of this thing is they went to Bennu to see what was up there. They went down and they grabbed this stuff, and they didn't realize they sunk way deep into it. It was just like sand, real soft sand, and they sunk right into it. And I believe it's because it is bloody, just basically blood cells and so forth, bloody little tissue spots. Now, they took that back to Earth, and what are they going to find? They're going to find all of the exact same stuff that's in these metals. These are all different metals. Every different color looking thing and crystal here is a different flocculated metal. It's congealed basically with its friends to create crystals. And the metals that they're going to be are the metals that are in blood. And I have shown that very, very clearly. All right, this was just a complete study that was done, all three different things: whole blood, plasma, and serum. And this was by Oxford Academy, and they took and went through all these different bloods and to see what's in them, what is the quantities and the different types of metals. And these were the metals. They had 26 elements in looking for all these different metals. These are just all different metals. Basically, so they wanted to find these 26 different specific elements. I'm not sure exactly why, because your blood consists of almost every one of those. You know, all the way up in this whole area, all the way up into uranium, I think. You still can have that in your blood, too. As a matter of fact, they were looking for it here. And they also had gobs and gobs of iron and carbon, which they're not showing up on here. Now, so here's what the results were. All of these, this is in whole blood. These are all the different elements, and here's all the quantities. So that's right there. If they're doing this extensive research on those molecules, I want to see, is the plasma, maybe it's plasma. Because it could be whole blood, it could be plasma, or it could be serum. And here's the serum. But here it is right here. There's no work to do at all. How does it match up? Now, there's going to be some differences in isotopes, which they were talking about already, because the isotopes do get burnt off a little bit. It didn't come through space where you really get cooked off like this. And it becomes a whole new element, basically. The isotopes are where just little bits and pieces of the molecules get burnt off, and they get a half-life. So instead of being carbon 12 or whatever it is, it'll be carbon 11, that type of thing. See, this is what an isotope is. When you take carbon, all right, so you got carbon here, and that's what a carbon atom looks like. For them, a carbon atom would be like only about 12 little tiny, 12 big balls. For me, it's going to be 12 looking like this, but every one of these is 1,823. So you got a bazillion particles. Now, when you get into isotopes, all that means is that you lost a few of these particles, or you have a few too extra. There's going to be one place that's stable, and that's carbon-12. All right, 13 is pretty stable too. But here, remember I told you carbon-12 could degrade isotopically down to carbon-11? Well, here it is right here. Here's carbon-12. You see it? Exactly carbon-12. Well, if you decay a little bit, you become carbon-12 with a little tiny taste of decay. But then you get down to carbon-11. You see carbon-12 down to a carbon-11. And then it's not stable anymore. It wants to get up to that way. And then you get to carbon-10, carbon-9. You see it? Carbon-9, carbon-8. They're all different carbons. They never take this into account and talk about it. All right? And then when you go over the top of too many particles, you get up into these numbers. Carbon 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way up the line. And it goes much, much, much higher than this. But their stability is so short-lived, they're never going to see it. When they get up to here, their time between their half-life is just, what I'm getting at is there's so many particles they have no clue that they're there. And this is the only way to account for them is the dipole electron flood theory, which states this, that every proton is made of all electrons, dipoles, and they can push the black matter right to the center. Now it could be this way or it could be this way, where there's a layer of black and then a layer of the charged particles and a layer of black and a layer. Always, always, always the outside is going to be the glowy particles which have the energy. And these are the only two particles that exist, is the white electron, which is white. It's the energy part. The muon is the dark part, and the electron part can get really energetic, really close to the nucleus. All right, the more close it is to the core, the more tightly it's held. That's the strong nuclear force. When they get out further and further and further, they get weaker and weaker because they're just not as tight to the core. And that's why you have these different colors, and the white and the dark, and this is going to be the differences in the standard model. Is these are the only two particles that exist, and together they make gluons, which are, we would always consider those electrons. Two of these together make photons, and as they're gaining energy to become these particles, they turn into different colored neutrinos, the green, the red, and the blue. And there's going to be some things change in science and chemistry, because chemistry is wrong too. The only thing that makes all this stuff happen the way it happens in life is the enzymes. And the enzymes, the only way you get those is from the bacteria. And those live in a fluid-filled highway in the body. And they make the enzymes to do the chemistry. So the chemistry has to change, the periodic table has to change, the standard model is wrong, so that has to change, and the new change is right here. It's dipole electron flood theory solves every single problem, every single one. When they smash their particles together, they get all this debris, and then they dig through it, and they have found the same particles we found, which is these right here. Those are the ones we found too. So there is no difference. All right, there's no sense in beating this thing to death. They are studying Bennu, which they brought back the sample, and they're having teams of university students and faculty making use of a wide range of capabilities. They say they can see down into the atomic realm, even in the subatomic realm, with isotopes, which is what I was just talking to you about. And they can use optical and electron microscopes, and a newly acquired tool, which is this NanoSIMS instrument, is up and running, is offering stunning looks at isotopes, different variations of atoms, to help interpret how each particular component in Bennu's sample originated. Well, I want to see if they can see all of this, and they can see them in different quantities, which they should very well easily be able to see. I mean, they're studying this everywhere in the world. They got a zillion people on this, and they're saying they're going to be studying this for years and years and years to come. Well, I want to know, is it blood? I mean, I don't see how it cannot be. Now, there might be some little isotopic differences, yes. All right, instead of carbon-12 consistently, you might have carbon-11, carbon-10 a lot more than you would a carbon-12. That's all. Because it's being irradiated. Anytime you irradiate something, you drive off little bits and pieces of isotopes. All right, and you send them off, not a whole lot, but some. So the outside surface is going to be more exposed to that. Inside is going to be pristine. It should be perfect. Now, what they took off, though, was on the surface, and it was dried out, and it was irradiated to some degree, I would imagine. Well, I'm sure it would be. Like this one here, that thing must have got really, really, really close. Whoops. To a, hold on. Oh, this always happens. What did I do? All right, that's Psyche. That must have been right on the edge of getting burnt to shreds. I mean, that's smelted. That's metals, and they're just saturated with metals. They're just nothing but metals. And the same thing with this. They know it's all metals, and I'm guarantee you right now, they already found clay. I know they found clay, which is nothing more than flesh. Clay is flesh. It's just eroded. Here it is right here. They're looking into these samples, and they say already they've seen Bennu samples contain plentiful amounts of water locked up in minerals like clays, which are fleshy materials, also rich in carbon, which is what we are, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus. All your membranes in your whole body are made of phospholipids. It's the number one thing going on. The samples represent the largest reservoir of these materials on Earth. We're going to be busy for a very long time, they're saying. Enormous amount of samples for us to work with. Well, it's tiny little particles, 200 milligrams, roughly 7/1000ths of an ounce. All I want to know is it right down to the atomic scale. Is it the same stuff that's in blood? That's all. All right, phosphates are everywhere, and you know why they are everywhere? They're saying that osiric samples have a phosphate crust never seen before in meteorites. Well, phosphate crust is this, phospholipid bilayer. That's the phosphate crust that covers all body parts everywhere. Your skin is completely covered with this stuff. Every organ, this is a membrane, and everything is separated in your body by membranes. There's just a ton of it. And it would be this phospholipid layer. So that's why they're finding these heavy amounts of phosphates. And they're also finding all this stuff, the blood too. Same stuff. It appears we live in a universe that was just saturated with life. Earth is basically a corpse. This is a membrane. These are the ion channels, the protein channels. You see these little layers around each one of these blocks? That's what's called slurpy. It's a gooey substance that allows this to be a matte and impenetrable, but it keeps it flexible. This is the top layer. It's bilipid. There's two layers. In between here is the fluid-filled highway where all the bacteria and all the enzymes and all that are supposed to save you. And this is what a membrane looks like, and it has even one of these little squirrely things coming up here, and these are the protein channels. You see, this is it right here. There's 6 feet between that layer. So don't tell me those hearts can't be the size they are and be floating around in space. There was creatures that we just can't even get our heads around, and nobody's even ever thought about that. So I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody, but I am now, because nobody will start looking at this. Their minds are absolutely, and they get so obnoxiously nasty. Oh man, you want to see some of the things that I've been whacked with just recently. Yikes. And I just had somebody tell me, they mentioned my name and they were assaulted. He said it was the worst day of his life for assaults. He said something like almost instantaneous. There was 65 comments and every one of them was those stupid little faces. But he thinks there's bots. is what he said. He thinks it must be because it was just so fast. I don't know. It is happening, I can tell you that. My channel is not doing well as far as being seen. I don't really care, to be honest with you. If you see it, good. Just pass it around a little bit, because we're sort of. I could see why nobody wants to see. This is going to be tough on people's careers and lives and everything else. Plus, it's a shock. One woman once said to me, she says, it's interesting. She said, but it's very jarring. And I don't disagree with that. It is jarring, because nobody's ever looked at this with these kind of eyes before. Nobody's ever opened their eyes wide enough to see this. They see it and they say, wow, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Oh, what are we having for dinner there tonight, Marge? That's just the way life works. I can't live that way. I just cannot live that way. I mean, I know I might be disturbed in some manner. I don't know. But I can't live that way. Okay, here's a little chemistry for you. This feldspar is what every rock basically is coated with. It's the coating on the rocks. And every single feldspar consists of something that is a certain type of chemistry attached to aluminum silicates. Aluminum silicates is the key. And that boils down from the phospholipids. See, this is mineral database, feldspar. The name given to a group of minerals distinguished by the presence of aluminum and silica, aluminum silicates. This group includes aluminum silicates, soda, potassium, or lime. It is the single most abundant mineral group on Earth, because every single body part is coated by this fascia, which is feldspar. You see this? This is phosphorus, a phospholipid bilayer. There's two layers of phosphorus, and they have this fatty lipids inside. Every single part of your body is coated with a membrane. Even your blood cells have membranes around them, even the red blood cells. Every single tendon, muscle, your skin, everything is coated with this phospholipids. That's why it boiled down to aluminum silicates during the hot water flood, and that's why that's the most prevalent rock on Earth, and that's why it coats all these things, because that's collagen. Collagen is what phospholipids was made out of, and they coat, and they put a surrounding layer around what turns into basalt and limestone and everything else. But the phospholipid is the membrane. Now, you got to understand chemistry. You got to understand a lot of different things. Isotopes of phosphorus. Phosphorus is the phospholipid membranes. Guess what the isotopes are? These are the decay daughter isotopes. Well, what is the decay daughter? Silicon and aluminum. That's what happens. Silicon, see it all down here? Silicon, aluminum, aluminum, silicon. It's all, it all turns into aluminum silicate, which is feldspar. And these are all the different styles of phosphorus. It's just like carbon. It's just like every one of these on here. There is zillions of isotopes. And then there's going to be one that's stable. It's 31. And you got 32, 33, 34. They're just more and more particles added to that phosphorus. And when they boiled, it went from phosphorus down to the daughter isotopes, which were the silicon and aluminum. That's what happened during the hot water flood. All right, so back to Bennu. I think I might have already gone over this, but I want to go over it again. One of the early findings in this asteroid material is distinct, different than anything else in our meteorite collection, isotopically. I showed you isotopes. They get burnt off. And that's why they boil down to aluminum silicates. There's a whole realm of material we never get access to if we just rely on meteorites. Meteorites cook off all that cheap stuff. All of this stuff down here gets burnt off, and then you end up with metals, basically, primarily. Some of them are stony meteorites. They don't all burn off. It says most meteorites endure their fiery fall through Earth's atmosphere and are recovered are bits of asteroids, so they just get little bits and pieces. But pinpointing the space rock from which they originated is not easily done. Well, I have meteorites here, and it's easily to do. Now, phosphate is the crust. Phosphorus, that's the crust. It says OSIRIS-REx samples have a phosphate crust, which means phosphorus. Never seen before in meteorites because it burns off. These high concentrations of phosphates have been detected in extraterrestrial ocean worlds, he said. How do they detect them in extraterrestrial ocean worlds? They are detected in our ocean because they are boiled off in high concentrations because they're membranes. It says that, for instance, Saturn's moon Enceladus contains phosphates. Everything contains it because there's nothing but life. It's a key building block of life at levels much higher than Earth's oceans. Asteroid Bennu may be a fragment of an ancient ocean world. No, it's a fragment of a heart. This is still highly speculative, but it's the best lead I have right now to explain the origin of that material. No, the best lead is the one I'm going to give you, whoever Loretta is. Okay, I've tried to contact this University of Arizona because they're giving them a lot of work. And they are the principal investigators for OSIRIS-REx. And I would like to talk to them. This is University of Arizona's Dante Loretta. I am going to contact this person. Now, I wish you would also contact them at the University of Arizona because I have never gotten a response from them. And that's just the way it works with me. Nobody will talk to me. Now, maybe will respond back to you. It's possible. Because originally I had a lot of people responding back to me, but as soon as I came up with my evidence, that was it. I was shut right off. So it's time that we looked at this space rock and we saw that it was actually a heart. All right, I'm going to leave it at this. You know that Caesar Augustus here, my mud fossil Caesar, he's completely coated with feldspar. But inside, it's basalt. It's not the same inside. And the same thing with this giant human fingertip, which was DNA tested and CAT scanned, and it is human. And they would call that mudstone. Because they look at it and say, oh, that's all mud. Well, you break it off and you get inside, and it's different. It's not 100% different, but it's not all mud. All right? Nucleophilic substitution creates invasion, but it never gets 100% change. But they would call this mudstone. They'd call that mudstone, too. Then you get in slightly calcareous, which is little bits of body parts and things, and it keeps going up and up and up until you get to limestone, which is almost completely calcium, CaCO3, calcium carbonates. And those are limestones, and you're really tough stuff. But this is nothing more than mud fossils in different ways of petrifying. And the mud in a mudstone is primarily the skin tissue and flesh. That just erodes down and turns into mud. But then you get up into your organs, and the organs come out completely, as organs, coated with fascia. And they call them different things, marl and calcaneus and argillarius and all kinds of names. But all it means is you keep going more and more from clay, which is the red bloody stuff, up to calcium carbonates, which is just the really limestone.